Okay, it's 5:30, I guess we can get started. And so the first thing I think we're going to do is, we got a few things on our agenda tonight. First is review the meeting minutes, and then staff report and Vision Beyond Borders site plan review, and then discussion on Title 17 for simulcasting and gaming. So I'll open up the meeting. Does the board have any questions or comments about the meeting minutes? If we need to make amendments or approve, or a motion to approve as written?
So moved. I don't have any adjustments on my end.
Okay, Chris. Anybody else?
Second.
Second?
Second.
Okay, all right. All in favor of approving the meeting minutes as written, say aye.
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 Okay. Motion pass. Next agenda item is a staff report. And Casey, is this, because it's a little different from what we're used to seeing, is this like a separate issue from the Vision Beyond Borders plan review?
So Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, the staff report will entail the amended site plan and just some base findings on the simulcasting and gaming amendments, just all kind of
Okay,
condensed into
so-
one staff report.
So the first thing we'll review is the Visions Beyond Borders.
Yes.
Okay, and then after that, we'll go and talk about the other.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. So at this point, I'm going to open it up for the board. If there are any questions, or actually before I do that, Casey, could I have you give us a summary on the Vision Beyond Borders site plan review?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Vision Beyond Borders has approached the city through ECS engineers to amend their site plan. This site plan amendment strictly is requesting a delay in paving the parking lot until July of 2026. The delay has been requested primarily due to scheduling issues, trying to get pavers in right now. Paving typically ends around Thanksgiving, and there is a shortage of paving opportunities right now with contractors being incredibly busy. They have commitments to pay for the paving, so funding is not an issue here, and they will be able to pave it. They just needed to get an extension and an amendment to their site plan so they can get essentially an occupancy permit as things move on.
Okay.
We reviewed the amended site plan, found no matters of concern after first course review. The items that were adjusted were ADA parking. Originally, it was not identified to be paved, but we said that has to be paved, so we could be ADA compliant. And then we assured that the transitions from the paved road surface for on Radio Avenue and West Yellowstone were both going to have concrete valley pans and drives, so we wouldn't have any direct dirt to pavement.
Right.
So those have all been adjusted in the site plan, and staff recommends approval of the amended site plan.
Okay. Do you remember this application, believe it or not? It's been a while. Open it up to the board. Does anybody have any questions or comments about the application?
I do not.
No issues.
John? Or sorry, Robin? John? Chris?
I also remember this when we had a lot of discussion about the paving or lack thereof and how to do that when we had the initial site plan, and all we're really doing is allowing them to have a window to properly do this based on the contractor availability and the weather, so no issues on my end.
Okay. I don't have any issues either. What they're asking is reasonable. So do I have a motion and a second to approve the application as recommended by staff?
I'll make a motion to approve as recommended.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor of approving the application, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. I'm sorry, let me back up a little bit. Technically, I'm supposed to open this up for public comment. but I only see the mayor in the audience. So I guess we'll go ahead. I don't think there's going to be any, objections, but I need to remember to do that. Okay, next item on the agenda is essentially the discussion about Title 17 and the simulcasting and gaming, so if you could.
Notes, sorry, did we cover all the notes from the previous meeting?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
We approved those.
Sorry,
So
Distracted
Casey, if
ideas.
you could give us a summary of what we need to review and
Yes,
the
Mr.
city's
Chairman.
recommendation.
So, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, the Mill City Council is requesting to amend Title 17 to include regulations covering simulcasting and gaming. So, the city's acting on legislative intent, which has put forth draft amendments. And the city's intention here is to align Title 17 kind of preemptively to be able to address some additional authorities, if you will, that the legislature is hoping to grant to cities and towns. So this draft Title 17 amendments add simulcasting and gaming as allowable uses under general commercial or C1 zoning and only in C1 zoning. The draft defines simulcasting and gaming. It identifies that simulcasting and gaming must comply with special use regulations under C1 zoning, and it would also have some conditional use requirements. So it would give the city here in particular quite a bit of regulatory authority over where simulcasting, such as historic horse racing and other forms of gaming, can be and under what conditions that those establishments can be operated. Currently, there's 5 locations offering gaming and simulcasting. Those are the Hideaway Bar, which is currently in residential 2 zoning, B Diesels, which is general commercial, Bayou Skill, which is general commercial, Oregon Trail Bar, which is general commercial, and the Beacon Club, which is general commercial. So only one, which would be grandfathered, would be the Hideaway Bar.
Where, I'm sorry, which one is that?
That's the Hideaway Bar down on Riverview.
Okay, where exactly is that?
That's here in Lower Mills. It's probably
It's called a hideaway for a reason.
it's about 2 blocks from Waco.
It also goes
Okay,
by-
I think I see the signs to it, right? They have some signs on the property.
That's right.
Okay, yeah, I know where that is, okay.
And then finally, the placement of simulcasting and gaming and general commercial areas would be consistent with the Mills Comprehensive Plan and would allow us, the city, to take into consideration the impact of establishments relative to the public welfare. We opted for a 300-foot buffer zone from really residential or otherwise schools or daycare or church-style uses, just to accommodate more of the public welfare feel.
Okay.
Generally, as it is drafted, staff would recommend approval of the Title 17 amendments, noting any changes that the planning and zoning may require.
I guess what I'll do, in planning is we're recommending approval, or,
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
okay. I guess what I need to do is first of all, open it up to the board. If anyone has any questions, I'm still looking through it. Does anybody have any questions?
I have a question.
Sure. Go ahead, Rob.
The listing here, it looks like it's mostly bars, right? And I have seen, like Smith's, the grocery store, they popped in some gaming
Yes.
machines there. Is there a difference between the horse racing, gaming, and regular like slot machines? Is there a difference, or is that all grouped together?
So, if I may, so there is a difference, Mr. Chairman and Commissioner. The difference really is in the format of the game. So historic horse racing, the simulcasting style really kind of works off of more of the traditional slot style, if you will. There's not really a skill component to it. So I guess the most low-level definition of it would be the skill games require some some form of a memory or a mentalization aspect. They have matching components, so they're more like what you would see in an arcade or like on a cell phone, but they have a small winnings component to them. Whereas the historic horse racing is more along the lines of traditional gambling.
It was a way to skirt the laws against gaming in the state of Wyoming for the longest time. That's what we had.
Any other questions?
Maybe just a general comment, and we'll see where the conversation goes. So I think this whole conversation is very interesting to me because, you know, we are making code changes in preparation for what may happen with the legislative intent. However, if that does come to fruition, it does really change how you would normally think of zoning in general, because, you know, zoning is normally something where we're kind of dictating how we want things to develop, and then you may have permits, right, that then dictate how you use whatever gets built on that zone, right? So if this legislative work would go through, you know, really gaming would become potentially a right instead of it being a conditional, you know, use, and that really takes away control from the local control. You know, instead we're kind of giving it holistically, you know, above, and it's just a different way of really addressing this issue. And this is not necessarily how we're doing it, just why the legislature would want to move towards this is a bit perplexing to me, because it really goes against what we would normally kind of pride ourselves on, which is home rule. And instead of us deciding that this business needs to make sure they do X, Y, and Z, you know, kind of what we have in here, and then you can get your permit to operate that way, that's removed. And instead, because you have a potential package liquor license, you just automatically get gaming with it, right? So that aside, I think what we're proposing here is a good way for us to kind of get ahead of this as a city, and to have it documented as to what is our expectation of how we want the city of Mills to look and operate, and also have some guide rails for how do we expect these businesses to run their business. So I'll kind of pause there, but that was just more of my narrative as I was thinking through adding this in, and you know, and why we would do so.
So do you think it's one company that owns all the machines and then leases them out? So they have like,
Mayor, can you
so there's
answer a few questions?
Here we go.
Because I mean, I have some too, and that is, is the simulcast in gaming solely dependent upon if a place already has a liquor license, or I think it's independent of that?
So in order to operate a skills-based or the historical horse race, has to be either a package liquor license or cigarette sales. I was proposed that they also allow in the future vape cigarette sales, which would open the door for a whole lot of other facilities to do it as well.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Is there a specific, unfortunately I couldn't actually get online to see the whole testimony of the legislature that you were talking to them. Is there a reason why they're pushing this to ramshot over local authority?
Yeah, it sure is. So you had asked how many facilities we have right now. Right now we have 3. There's a 4th that is building a horse racing track. And so all of the historical horse racing has to be linked to a physical track. And so right now I think they have 1,500 machines per track in Wyoming that they can operate. And so an entity owns each one of the tracks, and a 4th is trying to come in, building that big old guy down in Cheyenne right now. So that's where this conversation started, was with the entity who is strictly building the track and the gaming facility to sell it off. He wants to ensure that somebody who buys it has the right to operate for perpetually, you know, as long as they want to operate, risking not that in 3 years they have to ask for a renewal or, you know, risk losing their license entirely. So that's where this conversation came from, was making sure that the buyer would have the ability to stay in a business.
Is there any accountability for that buyer on certain standards?
Nope.
Wow.
Not under the proposed changes, which was to allow them the right to buy zoning to be automatically approved.
So where is this currently with the legislature
They moved some things forward. They did dial back a lot of it based on the testimony, because we really put the emphasis on, like, you know, you had said, Chris, about how this is really against home rule, but this is really an overreach of the state, overreaching into local control and dictating how we want our community to look and what we want for the future growth and the shape and design of our city. And so we put the emphasis on that. My testimony was specific to how the right to do a business is not within zoning. Zoning tells us, you know, what kind of facility can go there, the setbacks, how much parking, you know, the noise level. It doesn't tell us what can go on inside the building. So we really put emphasis on that, so they did dial that back. They proposed a bill to go forward to put a moratorium on any more skills-based machines for 3 years, so that's moving forward. Because right now they're concerned about the grocery stores, they're popping up left and right, and that was never the intent for these machines, was to pop up in grocery stores. But the problem was when they created the legislature, or when they created the bill, that they allowed, the rule was you could put it up as long as you sold packaged liquor. The grocery store does. So does Maverick, right? So that's some of the problem here. So that was one of the things. The moratorium for 3 years was proposed. They did actually expand upon the limit of machines per track. So right now it's 1,500, and they suggested it be lifted to 3,000.
So if we approve the change to this Title 17, which seems very reasonable, and they end up doing legislation, is there anything you foresee they're going to do that's going to create a conflict that would limit our ability, except for those that are already grandfathered?
They were very concerned that anything we created would take away the rights of the existing facility. That was a very heavy conversation of grandfather rights. So as the one facility we have, they would stay put there. We would not want to anyway, so we would have no ability to change or influence what they're doing. You know, the reason why we're trying to get ahead of this is that if this legislation comes through, we're not coming in after it saying we want X, Y, and Z, because then we would have no right to do so.
Right.
So we're trying to get ahead of it and establish what we want our community to look like, so that way, if that passes or gets to that point, they have to come to you guys and ask to be put in those places.
So was there, in your communication with them, was there a willingness to work with local municipalities on this issue, or are they being pressured by certain lobbyists to just sort of do a ramshot over you?
The first go around very much felt pressured from a lobbyist from one specific group, and I was pretty floored at the first committee meeting where they were first being taught what zoning was, and then they were shoving this bill, you know, down the pipeline.
Who was teaching you too on zoning?
They had an individual who teaches, I believe, at the University of Wyoming that came and tried his best in a 30-minute window to teach what zoning is.
Wow.
And then we've got the committee trying to catch on to the importance of zoning and that it's not appropriate to be permitting a business within a zoning right. So the second time we went down to talk to them, we really put the emphasis on this is not the appropriate way to manage any other business. No other permitting, no liquor licenses, you know, no bars. None of them get permitted this way, so why would we allow this business to do that?
Right, do they realize the problem of that as far as they're setting up a different standard that's unfair when it comes to other businesses?
I completely agree with you, and I think, Chairman, that you'd be surprised as to who was in support of it, without saying the names out loud. Because it was really a big overreach.
So I need to make a few phone calls personally.
Yeah.
Okay, well, yeah, maybe we can have a conversation after this so I can make some phone calls, but I'm really surprised that they would actually entertain legislation that would overrule, number one, a local municipality of having to be able to zone, first of all, to have an impact on how their city looks.
There's a lot of money involved.
And then number two, well, I understand that. And then number two, they're potentially setting a precedent that would create unfair favoritism on a certain business practice over others.
Yeah.
And that's problematic.
I don't have that right as a salon owner. you
Right.
know, and.
I mean, it's just not,
Can I add something to that?
Absolutely,
I find
John.
it very ironic that they would want to do something that would allow what has always been considered a moral question of behavior, that easy right to exist. Whereas other things like, and I'm going to bring it up, is marijuana, that they absolutely will not. They won't even let you do hemp anymore. Last I knew, they were fighting against the hemp industry. And I just find it ironic that they would go after that, and that, as you guys said, it's probably money.
Mhm.
So,
Yep.
okay,
Yeah,
Another question.
absolutely wrong.
Other than having a liquor license, which kind of opens that up, are there other ways of going around not having a liquor license and putting those gaming machines in?
not to my knowledge, but I believe that's why they were trying to propose the vaping as well. Yeah,
So nothing in the legislations is going to change that then?
not that I'm seeing, no. You know, and Cheyenne's mayor was concerned because, you know, the intent of this one builder for the horse racetrack, and I can see it through a business owner lens, right? You don't want to build a business and then put it up for sale, and then you don't have any guarantee that that's going to be that business. I get the concept, but the mayor's concern was that what if it gets bought out by a Vegas company? You know, what would happen? We have that example here. What happens when a Vegas company buys out our local facility and our crime skyrocketed? I mean, they got it under control now. We figured it out.
Is that the business off of Wyoming and Yellowstone Highway?
Yep, managed by a Las Vegas owned business.
Okay.
Yep.
I didn't want to mention the name, but I
Well,
figured that was it.
well, I think there's something to be said that we have great people who work here locally and live here in our
Okay,
Pelham
okay.
community. But I will be firm in saying that I'm disappointed in the upper management and the hands-off approach that that business entity has had with the local community and the other facilities they own. So I'm going to be straightforward about that.
Okay,
yeah, they shouldn't be causing an additional burden on our public services.
Exactly, and that was one of the things that we talked about down there. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Sure. Sure, so as I've been thinking through this, because this is proposed, I mean, if it gets introduced in the next session, it'll probably have multiple amendments and may or may not pass. So as I was looking at this as well, I was like, well, if we make the change to Title 17 now, and let's say this proposed legislation doesn't happen, is that good, bad, or indifferent for what would be in our code long-term, even if we're not fighting against what the state may be doing?
I think it's a good safeguard. But
And that's why I came up with it, because I was trying to rack my brain for, is there any reason we wouldn't want this in here, period? Or does this add clarity to what the expectations and better bifurcates what is zoning, what is permitting, and better documents how these should be run within our community? And that's where I landed at. I couldn't think of a reason that, even if we weren't having this legislation discussion, why wouldn't we want this in here in the first place?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that was my opinion
I
there.
agree with you.
You know, as far as markets and things like that, they look at all these different things that come in, it's gaming machines, it's a money maker, big time, all right?
Yeah.
So whatever we're making decisions here, we can look at some of the potential commercial entities that would want to come into our community here and build, and they'd look at that and say, you know, that is a revenue stream that we're not going to be able to use if we come to Mills.
Yeah.
So that's just something to think about too.
Yeah, absolutely. I would be personally open to the discussion if there was an individual who wanted to open a hotel and have the machines, then I would talk, you know. But if we're just gonna start plugging them in every gas station, I just can't say yes to that. I think the original intent of the proposal from the individuals was to mirror what they do with the adult novelty businesses, if that, for lack of a better word. I think that was the intent, is, you know, let's treat them the same, but they very much are not the same as far as police response, ambulance response, and the effect on the community as well.
So, before I go on to the other question I was thinking about, it's more to you, Casey. Were there any other things that we need to be aware of when you were down there talking to the legislatures about this that we haven't already discussed?
Probably not off the top of my head. I think I addressed kind of like the forefront things as far as this topic goes. I mean, there's always others. So yeah.
And again, the reason why this is being pushed is because of some lobbyists and private business entrepreneurs that want to push this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So Casey, with these changes, I see some of them address, we're still maintaining the lighting requirement, and I'm assuming, I can't find it, but the landscape requirement, everything would fall under the planning and zoning requirements for any commercial property, correct?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, so the intent of the addition for this would be to, all requirements for anything under C1, under the general commercial, would have to be complied with. Yeah, this would change nothing, it would have no carve-outs that are special for the industry. They would essentially have to comply with everything else that anyone in C1 or anyone else in the city would have to comply with.
And then it looks like there is, under operational standards on like this, it shall not exceed the times between 8 AM and 12 AM, is that correct?
That's correct.
Mr. Chairman, if I could
Yes,
ask a
John.
question about that, I'm curious as to why 12 AM and why not follow the same standard as most operating places of liquor consumption, right?
Sure, so if we look at some of the historic, I guess we'll call them incident rates or incident times, we look at, the after midnight hours tend to peak some of your more egregious police responses. They can happen before those times, but this kind of confines things to these certain operations are allowed during this, during a window of operation, while you still may be able to consume alcohol after these things. It helps kind of disperse the different crowds that are sometimes there for different reasons. And it helps public safety, but it also helps traffic flow because, which is part of the intent of having these in commercial areas. They're open streets, open areas where traffic can vacate, fairly easily. And having bifurcated hours just helps facilitate that a little more.
No, is that, I guess, the question is, I got two questions on that. First is, are we sure that we attribute the police responses to gaming specifically, or is it alcohol consumption for extended periods?
So I couldn't say either or, but I would, my experience in law enforcement, it's alcohol exacerbates everything. I don't think anyone is going to game with the intention of getting into a fight. The kind of the issue with these blends is, alcohol makes people a little bit more free with their pocketbooks and a little bit more willing to game. And so when you tie all those things together, it definitely opens the potential for more problems.
So possibly just increasing the alcohol consumption in late night activity.
And I think my intent to, I believe it got the new draft, was to link it to the liquor license, so that if at any point we decide that we need to remove a liquor license, and so with that thought, maybe we keep it in line with the liquor hours, if that's the intent.
Yeah, otherwise, how do you enforce that? Where they turn the games off at midnight? How do you?
Yeah, it's
regulate
fair.
that, on an actual time scale of
Sure.
today or tomorrow or whenever?
Yeah, absolutely. We do see though, we know that ours is linked to alcohol. The decrease was when they removed the dance floor portion of it, the bar portion of it. They still serve alcohol, but now they're predominantly just gaming in our local facility. But the other facilities are seeing, for instance, the Blue Roof sees a much stronger homeless population, drugless population because of where they're located. And so, yeah, it's not all alcohol, but that our specific problems were linked to alcohol.
I guess that was it really on that, but I do have other questions, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, John.
Okay. I guess if we're going to add this in here, I just had some things that I think we should add or change. So that's kind of not saying, whether or not it's important. It's just stuff I think is kind of curious. And one thing that come to mind when I heard that only the hideaway was grandfathered, is that what I understood?
Yes, it'd be the only one that's outside of the commercial one zoning.
Oh, I see yours. Okay, yes,
Oh,
sorry
because
about
it's
that.
in a residential.
Yes.
Now, Bayou is not?
Bayou's not. Bayou is actually Bayou's in kind of an awkward area where,
Right between?
well, the commercial one kind of extends to include it, so I think it was, that was kind of done on purpose when the land use was originally assigned.
Okay.
But as it stands, the facilities would still be grandfathered under their allowed uses. So we couldn't go and force them into what we
Okay,
want them
that's
to
coming to
be.
my next question about 300 feet. How does that work?
Yeah,
In a particular case, there's 3 of them that are within 300 feet of residence.
Mhm.
right, so, yeah, so nothing in this would affect anyone that's currently operating. You know, so the only thing that could really change here is if you had a, you know, something new coming in or something that would wildly change. So like, let's say you had a use change of an establishment. So let's say like the body decided it wasn't going to do gaming or something anymore, and then you know, it sold, and then a future person wanted to put gaming back in. Well, this would absolutely apply at that point in time.
So they gotta get it, I mean, this is because they have it, they don't have to get a conditional use permit at this point.
Correct.
Only if they can remove it, and then try not to pay.
Yes.
I have a question on that one. Are you seeing these businesses bringing in many more machines, like, kind of like front-loading it, so to speak?
So part of the problem with this, with historic horse racing, it's kind of outside the context of zoning, but the problem is
It's called gambling.
yeah, and the machines have proliferated around the whole county. It used to be somewhat restrained, so many per jurisdiction, however, that has not maintained. Casper has quite a few facilities where historic horse racing is a major portion of their tax base. Here in Mills, it's less, and our visitorship is less because there's, you know, options in Casper, so people aren't necessarily commuting directly to Mills for that anymore.
Do we know how much money is being generated in the Casper area, an actual dollar amount?
We can find out, it's pretty substantial, actually. Ours is substantial also,
My
honestly.
question
But ours
is,
also
we
not
want
cheap.
that revenue stream here. I don't know what the best answer is.
And I hate to say, for lack of a better word, it's a tax on the lower end of the population, so
Yeah.
low-income people
That's what I'm
specifically.
concerned about.
Yeah, so, you know, and I'm not saying no to it, but it's something to keep in mind, that it might do more harm than good. But I can answer that there is a grab for machines right now. So that was the reason why they lifted it from 1,500 to 3,000, is because they want to make sure that they've got enough assigned, so that if they expand, or if they want to build another facility in Mills, they have them you know, already assigned to them.
Because if we're looking at everything being grandfathered, well, I've got 10 machines now, I'm gonna have 100 before everything locks in. And
Roll 'em in
then I'm gonna
back
be knocking at our door here saying, I wanna enlarge my building, and you know, they've already got all the equipment, they're waiting.
Well, there was a proposal from the individual pushing this whole agenda that, well, they'll own the 3,000 for their track, and then they'll be happy to rent them out to other people. And then you run a whole other problem.
It's artificial market.
Yeah, yeah, and the problem too is that the machine should belong to the track that it goes to, because that's what's funding the horse racing. So it was a whole wasp nest.
So
of
they could
problems.
actually have a virtual machine that's tied to that track and not necessarily be in the vicinity of the physical location.
They all are, that's exactly it.
I'm not familiar with it, but.
Yeah, so we have a track, I believe, in Rock Springs and Gillette or Sheridan, I forget. Sheridan. There's one more.
There's one Casper.
That I'm told that one doesn't count.
Well, right.
It should count, but it doesn't. That's a different discussion, yeah. And so that's exactly it.
Okay.
We've got 307 horse racing, we've got Derby Club, we've got Wyoming Downs right now. And then there's a third one that's being built, that'll be its own horse track in Cheyenne. So when they own, that 307 owns a horse track, and they have to race a minimum of 15 horse races a year, and all of the money that's raised as a percentage goes into their purse to fund horse racing. The intent was to build up horse racing locally. There's a lot of evidence that showed that didn't happen.
Yeah, how many races?
15 per track per business. Yeah.
I'd like to know how many races are.
Yeah. Personally, I enjoy horse racing, so I would, yeah.
There's an awful lot of machines in Casper just by itself.
Yeah. And so that was
Crazy.
actually some of the discussion was, do we put the, what is the word I'm looking for, not the mileage, but it was like within 200 miles or 300 miles. It would have, so essentially if Sheridan track was open, nobody else could operate unless you were the owner of the track. Because again, the intent was to pour into the purse, and so if competing businesses were open, they had to help pour into the purse. So all that were happened was they just shut down for the day, and then the purse wasn't bigger as the intent was. And so I think they got rid of, no, I think they put it back in, that cap for the mileage, and so it came just about to the Casper city limits. If it would have came in, the horse racing track that was racing in Sheridan would have shut down our machines here, which is kind of crazy to think.
So who controls that? Who orchestrates the fact that this is a district that you can have within X amount of miles? Who
Yeah,
runs that?
there's a couple of people that are working tirelessly at the state of the Wyoming Gaming Commission that are in charge of inspecting and ensuring compliance, and they're running ragged over there.
Interesting.
Any other questions?
Well,
Not on that, I just have more of our own policy clarifications, but
Go ahead.
okay, so if we're all in agreement that, you know, we really want to have control here at our level, and the state says we're doing it this way, who overrides who? Local control or the state? The state says, hey, everybody can do whatever they want, and then we go, no, we can't do that here. Who wins?
we only exist under the premise of the state anyway.
So we would find ourselves in court at that point in time. to
Is
clear.
that something
And a judge
that we
would tell
would
us.
win, or it would be something that we throw lots of money at, and in the end, you know, the billionaires that have been backing all this?
You know, the hope is that a judge is unbiased and reads the language of the law as it's intended. And, you know, and I would feel that our home rule would override, you know, bigger government control. I feel that way in a couple of things. But it's up to a judge, so, yeah, yeah.
You know, just this whole thing is silly, but, just the whole state part of it, the whole regulated part of it, you know. So, speaking of regulations, let's get ours in order. At least, if we could listen to my comments. So the 300-foot buffer, we talked about how that will not affect existing establishments unless something changes, which is perfect, because it's not really the right to do so. Some of the requirements in here, like the parking and whatnot, are just kind of general, or they kind of, as in like the landscaping that isn't included, can we just refer them back to that table and remove any extra comment to that?
We can. So the parking, basically the one space per 100 square feet of gaming floor area, that's one of those, in looking at other models for basically control of gaming facilities across the country, this was kind of a similar one. I honestly can't give you a rhyme or reason for particularly why. You know, would we look at, I looked at about 20 to 25,
Does
models.
Casper have anything?
No, so this is going to be new really for everyone in the state,
Okay.
to kind of go down this road.
Cheyenne's drafting something similar to that, yeah.
And so when I pulled, I looked at about 20 to 25 different, models from different places around the country, just trying to get an idea of what ours would want to look like. There was a lot of stuff that was extremely restrictive I didn't even include because it seemed arbitrary.
Yeah.
This off-street parking, to me makes some sense. One space per 100 square feet of gaming floor area because you can really stack a lot of people into the gaming facilities.
Yeah.
When you get hundreds of 100 machines into a facility and you potentially have one person on each machine, that's a lot of people. That's a lot of traffic loading for a parking lot
Yeah, I don't think our feet is unreasonable. I don't know, maybe we can put that into our, we have a parking requirements, like chart, right, or section?
Yep.
Just maybe move it to there instead.
Easily.
Okay. Let's see what was the other one. And I think that applies to anything in here that can be maybe organized differently.
Sure.
Keeping the rest of the it is, and then kind of plugging these in where they belong.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, we talked about the midnight thing. And the what other, let's see, 5A, hours of operation, yeah, okay, so
Yep.
we talked about 12 AM, but then it says unless otherwise authorized. What is that? What are we talking?
So kind of the intention behind an otherwise authorized issue would be some places like packaged liquor, you know, and this is where kind of the nuance of the 12 to 8, or the 8 AM to 12 AM comes in there, you know, where you would have some bars that, you know, they're open until 1 or 2. And you could say, you know, if you know, in line with this, you could say, okay, if you're going to be, serving alcohol, you know, you're authorized to operate till you're, you know,
Okay.
till 2 AM. But if you're a packaged liquor only, you know, you could be constrained just till the 12 AM. That's one of those ones that it's easy to massage that one either way.
It's easy for people to go, oh, yeah, well, authorized through whatever. Well, what is that?
And it's one of those ones that's kind of it's, as far as operational standards goes, it's kind of an awkward place to regulate, and that's really where your input is really key here is, you know, we have places that, you know, that can serve and have packaged liquor, so it's one of those ones that also can muddy those waters.
Yeah.
So I'm happy for whatever guidance that the P&Z would like to see with 5A.
I definitely would not want to see any past 2 AM.
Okay.
That's my opinion, just because I know the nature of some of the people that have frequencies, but establishments might be a full AM night.
Sure.
So,
Yeah, I think I wouldn't want it to go past 12 AM, but yeah.
yeah, it's a matter of how do you do that, though?
Yeah.
How do you enforce that? You know, the majorities are in a place of consumption, and they go to.
Well, and I wonder if the question lies on the ability right now for them to operate is the liquor license, which is an odd hand-in-hand, but that also determines hours for most places. And I think that's fair. As a business, they should have the right to.
However, there's
Yeah.
cases where possibly we wouldn't have that, like the grocery store, which is strange to me, but I mean,
Yeah.
I don't want to see it necessarily, but I don't have any right or authority to say no, or should think that we would have that, you know, necessarily.
Is it possible, John, we could just split it and say, well, I guess there's a kind of cover scenario 3, but you could say it follows the hours of the liquor license, and what, for sold packaged liquor only, it cuts off at midnight. Right?
Yeah,
So if you're just a liquor store or whatever, and then the scenario 3 would be what if you have both, right? In that case, do we need to put the language in there that still just defaults to the
About the parent business or the hosting business or
something? Yeah, I'm open to some solutions, but I think that way you
you
can.
know, that might open it up too far to hosting businesses, and they could open up a, convenience store 24 hours a day. You know?
Yeah, that's where we're at, right? So it's kind of like,
Anyway, I think just maybe just thinking about how to clarify that.
Sure.
My suggestion. Check the police department approval of their operations plan or security and operations plan. Is that something that we have in place, or
No,
is it already in works?
that one came by way of our facility here and the lack of,
Comprehensive planning.
yeah, I mean, they had some pretty substantial crime come from there, and so we wanted to know that there was a plan. You know, people were trained to de-escalate, and there were security cameras in place, so that's kind of where that comes from, is our unfortunate experience.
I kind of liken this to similar to how we like to have fire inspections in buildings for public, for public safety. This would give the police department just a layer of public safety that we could assure that there's, there's security, or there's some measure of security, especially when we're dealing with, large amounts of potential cash and alcohol fueled.
The only problem I see with it is not established principle method to do so, which is very open to interpretation and it's arbitrary. It can actually be used retaliatory, So that's, I wanted to make sure that maybe we get some kind of definition in there. I'd like
Yeah.
to see that.
Yeah, what we contemplate is basically the police department during an approval of this would have a sign off saying, they presented us with a form of a plan,
Yeah.
and the police department has accepted it. as such. That would, you know, unfortunately, on the planning side, I guess fortunately, I shouldn't say fortunately on the planning side of it, I don't have to worry about police procedures or operations, and
Right.
we would really want the police department to come up with some, you know, some way to, you know, adequately, you know, meet with them and plan that out. And that would be ideally part of the police policy and procedure that would kind of marry with this.
Casey, would you almost see that kind of like, to use your fire example, they have a checklist. There, yeah, you know, so
Yes.
that way there's a actual document and, you know,
Yep.
well, this business had these rules and this business had these rules, right? That's what you're trying to get to, so we have equitable treatment. But yeah, to your
Yes.
point, that would live in the law enforcement policies and procedures, not necessarily in our code.
Yes, and when something would come before the P and Z or the council, what would happen is contained in kind of the packet would be, you know, a certification saying, yes, there is a law enforcement plan, and, you know, some of that plan, you know, may or may not be some public-facing things, there might be some security reasons in there, but basically the police department would assess, yes, we have a plan on that, and that would be a document that, an exhibit that everyone would be able to see.
That is, I guess, that answers my question.
Sure. Great, that's a great question. I'm glad we talked about that, because that was one of the ones that, initially, when this was in there, I was like, you know, I think it's necessary, but, you know, I consulted several different planning organizations about what their idea was behind that, and it was essentially, maybe it's not necessary to attach it to our actual zoning regulations as an amendment or an attachment, because it's there could be public safety issues if we have a blanket law enforcement plan, but just an attestment should suffice.
When our fire chief does have a checklist, his is kind, I don't know if it's officially attached, but I mean, when we had the new school built, you know, he had to see a fire plan and all of that, so I think that that's a great suggestion.
Who authorizes the liquor license? Is it the city that says yes, or it's not the county?
The city.
The city. So we really do have a lot of control as far as how many businesses are gonna be able to do something like this.
Yes and no. Think about it this way. If you wanted to open a bar and you complied with all of the things that we had laid out in our building and zoning and everything, and I still told you no, you would have the right to sue for the right to build your bar and open your bar.
So we don't have a finite, we have 15 licenses that we allow in the city of Mills. All right, we don't have that?
We do have,
It's 9.
It's 9?
Yeah.
So is there like?
Well,
a
we
cap?
have 9. I think we can have,
with one extra right now.
we have 1 extra right now.
These
Is
aren't
it-
like.
So is there like a
Casper,
cap number of license you will allow in a city? that-
It's for the.
It's set by the
population.
state too,
Yeah.
yeah.
The state decides that?
Yes.
It's
How
based
many
on
we
what
get.
the population number?
I believe it's the population.
It's gotta be, yeah.
Okay.
Are there, side note, just curious now, talking about these licenses, are they like Casper where they were like commodities to be bought and sold?
You
and
can't
traded?
buy a license.
Yeah, so you can, and
Thank you.
that's a very
Just
important
checking to make
statement,
sure.
yes.
You
You
cannot buy a
cannot,
license.
cannot
They're
buy a
in Casper
license
for
and you
a while,
cannot
man.
sell a
We're
license.
almost
Yes.
$500,000.
So I can't go in and say, okay, this is Robbins Market, right, and I'm gonna sell it, all right? Someone comes in and says, I want that liquor license too, because you're selling alcohol in here. Does that go with the building, or does it just go back out to the populace and then out
So
of the 9 it
it's
goes
an
somewhere else?
application process. They
Yeah.
have to apply, it has to go through council, there has to be like a public hearing.
What was the one that was just,
We just did, Homax purchased, well, they purchased the alcohol that was left over by Mountain View Liquors.
but they did not have
But
the
they
right
didn't-
to purchase the license, they
Right,
still
and I
had to come
explain
ask.
that to her.
Yeah.
You're not purchasing the license. You could be purchasing the alcohol that's left, but that's it.
So there's no guarantee that if you buy a liquor store or business or bar, that you're gonna get the liquor license. There's
Right.
no guarantee of that. You still have to come before the council and ask.
It's not commoditized, it's.
That's interesting.
Never should have
It's a
been.
whole process.
Yeah.
There's a whole
Yeah.
process.
And there's- California was kind of like, you could buy it.
Yeah.
Artificial brine.
Big money.
And then one more about the sound.
There is decibel mention in the code, and we can add that or very easily.
It just says no sound, like this.
Sure.
Whispers only.
Yeah.
When you're talking beyond the property line, that's pretty, that's sort of loose.
Sure. No, that's easy to, really easy to add that decibel limit. That's just reference to the previous portion of.
Yeah, that's good, that's good.
And I think it's important to remember where these will potentially fall if they are approved, and it's pretty heavily industrial, commercial area only, so it's kind of already allowed.
Yeah.
in those
Yeah,
areas.
because the other concern, and I'm sorry, I keep beating this dead horse, but if you're 300 feet away from residential, that's pretty close.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And our landscape requirements are pretty minimal.
If we could go back in time, I'm sure all of us, we would love to remap the original city of Mills. I think we would have put our foot down and said, no mixed use. We've got blocks that have businesses and industrial and houses and commercial and restaurant, you know, we would have fixed that if we could, but we're doing it what we can now.
Okay, well, the only thing I have a concern here is that, you know, with RF street parking where you have one space for every 100 square feet, that's a lot
Mhm.
of parking spaces.
I would almost request that we maybe
Is
set an
there a-
explanation of
is
parking
it-
lots.
Is there a way that we could actually, well, I know this gets into now you're treating one applicant different than the other, but because of the volume of potential cars, is there something we could sort of enhance a landscape requirement based on
I
that?
would be curious what Casper has, because I know like their businesses have to provide for parking, but like they also have to have certain parking spaces, so I'd be curious how they mapped it out.
I'd be interested in that, and also because, you know, I mean, we run into this before, keep bringing up the example, but, you know, developers can misapply and putting something somewhere that end up taking out a landscape buffer. And I just don't think we should allow that. And then on top of that, I think, I'm concerned when we start increasing the volume number of cars, especially for this kind of facility, I'm wondering if there's something we can consider on a landscape buffer that's substantial. Within, you know, if it's like 300 feet away from residential, that's still pretty close.
Not everybody have landscape buffering requirements for lots of
Well,
certain size.
it's not, yeah, I don't know, I need to go back and look at this, but, so Casey, is this something that we review and approve a draft of, and then we see it again if any changes are made? Or-
So it can be, it can be fairly fluid. If you could approve tonight with changes, you could, we could table to make changes. It's really, you know, we could revisit it. It'll have to go, no matter what, it would have to go through 3 readings of council before it would become part of Title 17 officially.
Okay.
And
Maybe
then
we shouldn't waste their time.
No, I don't want to necessarily run the risk of it going beyond into when the legislature is in session next January.
And that's why the public hearing we scheduled is for Monday.
I think it would be entirely appropriate to, well, there's 2 options. You know, it could be tabled here. That would affect the reading at the council meeting. But it could be tentatively approved here, and then it could be brought back, because the 3rd reading will not occur until after the December meeting. So it could be rediscussed, and additional changes could be brought forth for the final reading for council. So that is an option. Those are kind of the 2 options that are kind of before us.
Because I would like to potentially, like, tentatively approve it with potential of maybe looking at some changes.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, what does the board think of that?
Kara, I like that, it allows us to keep this process moving. I think in substance, overall, we are kind of fairly aligned with the comments I've heard, but we do have some technical things I think we want to think about, whether it's the hours, whether it's the landscaping, whether it's the parking.
The noise.
Illinois, yeah, this would give us some time over the next few weeks to, as a group, think about these, have a discussion, and then we could make those final changes, pass it back to the council, and then the council would have our recommended final version before the 3rd reading when they do the final vote.
Okay.
So that's,
Does that sound
that's my
reasonable,
opinion.
Casey?
I would think that's entirely appropriate. It would give plenty of time for P&Z to further digest it. We can communicate for the entire time, and changes, I can, send changes out to everyone. They can, kind of communicate back and forth as we see, and they can be communicated with the council for every reading.
Yeah.
So the process can actually be a little bit more holistic, and we can keep track of changes as we go along.
Okay.
I was looking at the site and building standards. That's an angle that a person could look at too, because you're kind of targeting a specific business type. You could layer in a lot of different requirements. It's pretty vague right here. You could really have a lot of steps that somebody would have to go through. That would probably be very expensive to do, and that would maybe discourage someone from wanting to come here to do that. That's a thought.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, and council would love to have you guys, come and discuss with us as well, along the process, and I really encourage the ones that you suggested, which was move it along, but also, provide us with your dialogue along the way.
Okay.
It's added to the work session Monday, so you guys are all welcome to come Monday at
Okay.
6 o'clock.
Okay. I think at this point, my opinion, and I'm open to feedback from the rest of the board, I think we do a tentative approval, so to speak, with the possibility to add some changes to be determined in our next planning. And probably what we need to do is ask some questions to you, Casey, about some of these things we're thinking about.
Yes, please do.
And then we could possibly try to put those in our next planning meeting in December.
Yes.
So we can try to finalize that, and then that would be reviewed to the city council work session that's the following Monday. Is that what would happen, Sarah?
It's Monday the 10th.
What's that? But I'm talking about the one in December. Is it like the second?
First one it's the second Monday. in
The second
morning,
Monday
if
of the
you
month,
guys-
okay.
Yes, be right after our.
Okay, so it'd be right after our meeting.
Mhm.
The timing would be about perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Any other comments?
No.
I think what I would like to entertain, I need like a couple of motions that we tentatively approve this with the opportunity to make some changes in our next planning meeting that will be scheduled for the first Thursday of December. And then we would probably, as a board, via email as a group, we can include obviously the mayor, and when we talk to you and Sarah as well, about maybe some potential things that we're thinking about that we can communicate as a group, or do we have to do that in public?
It'd be best not to get in any kind of a quorum, but what we can do is, if you want to communicate with me, then I can communicate back kind of individually as we go, just as long as we aren't kind of making any group decisions as a P&Z.
Right,
But,
we wouldn't be making any group decisions as much as it would we be able to ask questions so we
Yes.
can narrow down the proposals of maybe some of these changes that we could put forth in our next planning meeting.
Absolutely, we
Okay.
can do that.
All right. Any other comments before I ask for motions? Okay, so do I have a motion that we tentatively approve this with the ability to make minor changes to propose in our next planning commission meeting, planning and zoning meeting?
I'll second.
What was the first?
I'll make a motion to do so.
Okay.
I
All right.
over there.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. We will proceed accordingly. And then, so probably what will happen then, Casey, I just want to encourage the board that we start chewing on this, throwing questions out, emailing Casey, CC all of us and the mayor and Sarah on questions. We wouldn't be making a decision on a quorum. We would just be trying to feel out some things of what we could do that possibly is reasonable, according to city planning. Your thoughts on that. So I say we look into this more, and we'll be in touch.
I appreciate it, that is immensely helpful.
Okay. Are there any other items? Looks like we've covered everything for our agenda.
Just public hearing comments.
No more questions, I guess we're good. We're adjourned, thank you.
We're not adjourned if we're still online.
Till the feed is out, right?